You know, when we hear the word architecture, we usually think of buildings, right? But what if you were building a system to help you think better? Well, that's what we're getting into today, the unique blueprint for constructing a decision support system, or DSS. This isn't about bricks and mortar, it's about designing for clarity when you're staring down some serious complexity.
And that leads us to the real heart of the issue. Most software is fantastic for tasks that have clear, repeatable steps. But how on earth do you build a system for problems where there is no single right answer? You know, the messy, ambiguous problems that you've never had to solve in quite the same way before.
And that, right there, is the world of unstructured decisions. Think about it. Launching a brand new product into a market that's totally unpredictable. Or maybe deciding on a huge strategic merger. These are one-off situations. There's no playbook. You're trying to juggle a bunch of different goals that might even contradict each other. That's exactly the kind of challenge a DSS is made for.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to dig into why building a DSS is so different in the first place. Then we'll look at the two main roads you can take to build one. After that, we'll walk through the detailed 7-step blueprint, uncover the secret ingredient of constant refinement, and finally, wrap up with why this whole process is such a big deal for making smarter decisions.
All right, first things first. Why is building a DSS so different from, say, building a standard accounting system? Well, it all comes down to the kind of problems it's meant to solve. Those messy, complicated challenges that are just part of doing business today.
And here's the absolute key takeaway. Traditional software is built for predictable work. A DSS, on the other hand, is built for ambiguity. It's not designed to automate a process and take the human out of the loop. It's designed to enhance a person's ability to navigate uncertainty and make a tough judgment call. And that requires a completely different way of thinking about development.
Okay, so you've decided you need a DSS. Awesome. The very first decision you need to make is how you're going to build it. Think of it like choosing the main construction materials for your project. And really, you've got two main paths to choose from.
So, on one hand, you can go fully custom. You build the whole thing from the ground up using programming languages like C++. This gives you total control, maximum flexibility, and you can build special connections to your other software. Then there's the other route, using a DSS generator. These are powerful tools like MicroStrategy or even a really souped-up Excel system. They give you a massive head start, which means much, much faster development. It's that classic trade-off, isn't it? Total customization versus speed.
Now, whichever path you end up taking, building a DSS for these tough, unstructured problems demands a very specialized blueprint. Seriously, this is not your typical software development lifecycle. So let's walk through these 7 steps.
So take a look at this. This flowchart pretty much shows the entire journey, and it's going to be a roadmap for the next couple of minutes. You can see it starts with diagnosing the problem and flows all the way through to something called incremental adaptation. This whole process is really a masterclass in navigating complexity. The whole thing kicks off with 3 really critical foundational steps. First up, problem diagnosis. This is where you formally define what you're trying to solve. You have to get this right because building a brilliant solution to the wrong problem, well, that's a recipe for disaster. Next, you identify your objectives and what resources you have. Basically, what does winning look like and what do we have to work with? And finally, system analysis, where you nail down the system's core requirements.
And that analysis phase gets broken down into 3 different buckets. Functional requirements are all about what the system actually has to do. The models, the calculations, all that good stuff. Interface requirements are about how the person will actually use it, the dashboards, the visuals, the controls. And finally, coordination requirements figure out how this new system is going to plug into everything else the company already has. Getting these 3 things straight from the get-go is just crucial for making sure the final product is both powerful and actually usable.
All right, on to the back half of our blueprint. Step 4 is system design. This is where you actually map out the architecture. Step 5 is construction. And this is where that iterative approach we hinted at comes into play. We'll talk more about that in a sec. Step 6, implementation, is all about testing it and rolling it out. And finally, step 7 is incremental adaptation. Now, this isn't just bug fixes. It's a formal process for continuously improving the system long after it's launched.
And that leads us perfectly into the real secret sauce of building a great DSS. The magic isn't in some massive one-and-done build. No, it's all about this process of constant, deliberate refinement.
This quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it?
In a normal project, changes are often seen as a problem. But here, small, constant changes are the entire point. The system gets built through a cycle of tiny adjustments, all based on real feedback from the people who will actually use it.
So the whole rhythm of development becomes this loop: build, test, refine, repeat. Let's say a developer builds a prototype dashboard for a supply chain manager. The manager tries it out and says, "Hey, this is pretty cool, but could it show me real-time weather patterns over my shipping routes?" That's not a failure. That's the process working perfectly. The developer adds the feature, and they do the loop all over again. It's this iterative prototyping that makes sure the final system is perfectly tuned to how the decision maker actually thinks.
All this constant refinement during the build phase means you get a system that works great right from day one. But then, that final step we mentioned, incremental adaptation, makes sure it stays great. It turns the DSS into what you could call a living system. It's not just maintained, it's actively and continuously improved to meet new challenges as the business evolves.
So we've spent a lot of time on the how, that unique blueprint for building the DSS. But let's bring it back to the why. What is the ultimate payoff for going through this whole specialized iterative process? Well, it really comes down to two big things: effectiveness and efficiency.
First, let's talk effectiveness. A well-built DSS makes your decisions just plain better. It improves the quality of the final outcome. You can spot problems way faster, get the exact information and tools you need right when you need them, and maybe most importantly, you can analyze a much wider range of possible choices before you have to make the final call.
And second, you get a huge boost in operational efficiency. This is all about the resources you use to make the decision itself. A DSS can dramatically slash the cost and, maybe even more critically, the time it takes to land on a high-quality decision. You get to the right answer faster, with less friction, and that is a massive competitive edge.
So, to wrap it all up, this structured yet incredibly flexible process lets us build seriously powerful tools for our most complex problems. Which kind of makes you think, doesn't it? If you had a perfectly designed DSS at your fingertips right now, what's the first big, messy, unstructured decision you would want to tackle?